Well, it's that time again, that time when we step into the virtual bar and see what sort of trouble there is to get into today. Because Greg's all about getting into trouble today.
That'd be me.
We're going to get into some trouble today.
You know, I'm getting into that intro.
Are you?
Yeah. And you guys are tapping your feet, legs.
It's a good tune.
What is it?
It's just something we got off of, I think, Audio Jungle or something. I don't know.
Cool.
When we first started, I told Gavin, I said, Gavin, I want to find something swampy.
That is perfect swampy music.
Yeah, he did a good job. He did a good job picking it out. Yeah.
All right. Gavin, where are you?
He is
Bring us some swamp,
he's
brother.
Sleeping after being at work all night.
Yeah, that'll work too.
Yeah, get to work. Whoop, whoop. That was my work whistle. They don't do that anymore, but.
They might, at the mines and stuff.
I mean, they should. Yeah. They definitely should do the work whistle because I think
It'd
the world
wake people up.
The world would be enriched by it.
The work whistle enrichment plan.
Okay. I was watching this. Before we get into this, I have to tell you about this video that I saw the other day, and I forget who did it. Some guy. But he was showing this video of this girl who was complaining because her employer was mad at her because she was not showing up to work on time. Now, this girl's sincere. I want you to know that, okay? She's not joking. This is like
sad part.
This is a sincere girl, okay? And she said it's terrible. She said something to the effect of, it's terrible that we live in a world where people don't recognize time blindness.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the first time I've heard that.
She created a disability out of her laziness. Yep.
Time blindness.
And so the guy, he starts commenting on it, and he's very satirical, kind of like sarcastic, just being funny. And he says, employers do have a cure for time blindness. It's called paycheck forgetfulness.
Pink slip.
Well, that's the kind of world. That's the world we live in, guys.
Yes, it is.
If you're lazy and can't be on time for your job, then just create a disability for yourself. And
that may come up later in the podcast here.
It's like that's a whole thing now. Have you seen the videos, the lazy girl job videos and stuff?
Oh no,
yeah,
I haven't.
It's a whole thing now. It's the lazy girl genre, the lazy girl movement. How to get a job where you don't have to do anything, collect a paycheck, and just live your life. That's the goal now.
I thought that was called OnlyFans.
There's that too.
I am in the wrong realm here.
What do you mean?
Oh my God, I didn't know about this stuff.
What do you
really
know about that?
Yeah,
Chris?
no, I'm not out there.
You should watch some podcasts. They'll tell you all about it. The thing that I have two boys, so I have to know all about these things. And so I'm pretty up to date on what's going on with Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and there's TikTok and there's a myriad of others. OnlyFans. The only thing that brought OnlyFans up to my mind immediately was because I just watched a podcast by a guy who was talking about how AI was putting these Instagram models and OnlyFans models out of business because they were creating AI girls that you can't distinguish from reality, and guys were liking them more than the real girls.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Imagine that.
Go figure. Is that a pun?
Yeah.
Ba-dum-boom.
Bada boom.
Legislation is coming to protect them.
Oh, let's hope
the
so.
AI girls?
No, the live girls. They have a beef now.
You know, I just said that was pretty profound. Legislation is coming to protect the AI girls too. It's a thing.
That could be.
Yeah,
it could be.
I haven't created a blog yet for that, but
Well, that's one of the things that the writers are striking about in Hollywood is they want protections from AI writers.
Yeah,
because obviously the AI writers can write better than them based on the box office over the last 3 years.
But there's no soul.
No, there is no more high art in cinema. It's all just patented, politicalized drivel. It really is.
You think that'll make its? Yeah, of course it will make its way into the photography world. I mean, it already has.
AI? Oh yeah, for sure. It already is. Yep.
It's called Photoshop.
Yeah. Oh, you can download apps on your phone where you can type in, any kind of image that you want and just tell the AI what you want it to look like, and it'll generate a series of images based on your directives.
We're there, gentlemen. 1984.
Yeah. Well, Elon Musk said that there's a higher mathematical likelihood that we're living in a simulation than we're living in the real world.
My buddy Elon said that.
He said that's true. He said it's true. He said that it's mathematically more likely.
Yeah.
Maybe he's actually an AI.
It's possible. He could be the Antichrist.
There was a movie, I think it was called Surrogate.
Yeah. With Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis.
That was a weird movie.
That was a weird movie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We could be in one of those.
Yeah, that was weird because it had that one guy, the big old fat, middle-aged, lazy guy in his room, and he was all sweaty and nasty, but in the computer world, he was pretending to be like this super hot chick, and all these guys were picking up on her. It's like,
if you only knew.
That the thought of that is so, it's beyond disturbing. It's sickening. It's like,
Have you seen The Whale?
Yeah.
Did you find?
Oh, no. We didn't see it. We talked about it, didn't we? We had a podcast. I haven't seen it yet. No.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't suggest it to people, but it's a pretty nice, well thought out study of a day in the life of.
Yeah.
It takes place in a very short period of time in a guy's life that is, basically messed up.
Yeah. Speaking of movies that I can't suggest, but that were actually fairly funny, Steve Martin Short, and Mila Kunis, is that her name? Can't remember. Anyways, they did this murder mystery podcast show where they're like these people that live in this building, and this guy gets murdered, and so they start as civilians investigating this thing, and they're making a podcast about it simultaneously, and it's really, really funny, but for some reason, I don't know why this is, but for some reason, there's just an excessive amount of the use of the F word.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's totally unnecessary. It does nothing.
No.
For the comedy of the show. It's just a random expletive every 5 minutes. It's like, why? I don't get it.
I don't either.
It's because it was the writer and nobody had the guts to push back.
Yeah, and it has no shock value anymore, except for those of us that don't like
my
it.
heart, man. Don't mess with it.
Yeah.
It doesn't. You're right. It has no shock value anymore. It doesn't even faze me anymore. It doesn't even surprise me.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah, and it's like, but it's annoying.
It's
annoying. It made me stop watching the show.
Mm-hmm.
A show that could have been really funny
and interesting,
and the characters were interesting, Steve Martin was great in it. Martin Short was great in it. I'm not normally a big fan of Martin Short, but he was really good in that.
When you mentioned those two, I thought you were going to go to Three Caballeros.
Now that's a good one. The Three Amigos.
Three Amigos.
The Three Amigos.
Right. Three Amigos.
Yeah,
that's, right.
That's with Chevy Chase too.
Yeah, that was nuts.
That's a classic. Of course, I say that it's probably like most movies made in that era. You can't even watch it now.
No.
You know, I remember trying to go back and watch Goonies and thinking to myself, "What in the world did I watch this at one time?"
That was the number one movie for a generation that went back and watched it and wanted to show it to their kids.
Yeah,
you got 10 minutes into it.
Yeah.
And went, wait a minute, I don't remember all of this garbage.
Well,
Bad
anyways,
situation.
Anyways. That's not even what we're talking about today,
No.
Greg. You just got us totally off track.
Yeah.
Way to go, Greg.
Went down a path that no return.
It's very, very upsetting when you do those kind of things. Actually, today we are talking about a pretty interesting subject, actually. I thought this was really interesting. So in a recent survey, not of the Family Feud style, but of the actual style, there was an unusual shift in political views that was revealed between high school and college age men and women. And like so much other division and polarization in this country, we're learning that young men are increasingly leaning to the right, politically speaking, while young women are increasingly leaning left. So this, I guess this argues against the kind of common narrative that kids are getting more liberal. But I think there's some things to add into that, so we'll talk about it. But various experts are speculating as to why this is happening. I mean, you mean various experts are panicking
Yes.
as to why this is happening.
Well, the air quotes, so-called experts.
Yeah.
Experts.
The experts,
Who
quote
believe.
unquote. I should have said that. Various experts, quote unquote.
Yeah, would have helped.
Yeah. And then like do this.
Yeah.
You can't
For
see,
those of you that
can't
are
see me doing
watching.
air quotes, but like
If you're not in this room with us, you can't watch.
we need a sound effect that signifies air quotes, like
Air
a
quotes.
Ding, ding.
air
Ding,
quotes. Ding ding. Air quotes.
Yeah. Or just
I'll work on that.
a radio voice that says air quotes.
Air quotes. Just lay it right over the top of the conversation. Air quotes.
We digress.
Okay.
Again. Or still.
Yeah, it's your fault.
It is. I'm taking full
Let's see.
responsibility.
The experts are speculating as to why this is happening, mostly in view of the next presidential election. This next presidential election just is terrifying to
It
me.
is.
Have you seen who is running against Joe Biden?
I haven't seen him, but I've heard his name.
Cornel West. You familiar with who Cornel West is? He is, I think he's at Harvard, but he is a professor. He's the guy that's got the really crazy hair, really, really hard, anti-establishment leaning kind of liberal.
Oh, I think I might have seen him in an interview.
He just did an interview with Russell Brand, actually. No, not Russell Brand. Who was he? Russell Brand was talking about him. He did an interview on CNN, and he was interviewing with what's the guy's name on CNN? The white-haired guy.
Oh, yeah. Him.
Anyways, I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
But anyways, he was
Not.
no.
The anti-Tucker.
Yeah, the anti-Tucker, absolutely. And they were kind of after him about how he was after the establishment, and he's definitely the anti-Biden as far as the establishment goes, but he is deep left. So that's going to be interesting. So it'll be him and Joe Biden if he makes it that long. Yeah, Cornel West.
This
That's
is
him.
the guy.
Yep, that's him.
Yeah.
Potentially, well, I don't know. I guess Kamala will run if Biden decides that he can't. And then you got Trump and potentially DeSantis.
There's a couple of others I read about.
This is
I think
gonna
this morning or yesterday.
This election cycle is going to be.
It's going to be a
bonkers.
circus.
It is. It's going to be an absolute
It's
circus.
going to be like a 12-ring circus.
Yeah, buckle your seatbelts. And the funny thing is,
Get out there and vote.
The funny thing is that it doesn't even really matter who gets in that office at this point.
Doesn't seem to, does it?
It doesn't, because they can't really do anything anyways.
No, it's the Illuminati that's in charge.
I don't know about that, but definitely lobbyists and corporate America, they definitely run the show. And it
seems like it all boils down to executive order and pardons.
Yeah.
Yes. And
what executive orders can you get past the Supreme Court?
Just force things on your first 90 days in office and then blow things up on your last 90 days coming out.
Yeah, that's the best you can do, seems like. And just take 6 months off like Biden's done, So anyways, today we're going to discuss some of the data that was in those polls and what that might mean for marriages, families, and the church in America.
I thought this was pretty interesting that all these several disparate, completely separated, unrelated data points are all showing the same thing. And, we've kind of had this discussion kind of around, Jordan Peterson, what he's trying to do to try to reinvigorate masculinity in young men. And this just kind of shows how this is
I think
veering off the rails here.
Well, yeah, young men are looking for a hero. They're looking for someone that they can respect, because that's built into their nature, and they're not finding it. And
the culture is taking away all their heroes, sports figures, entertainment, whatever. They've been canceled and marginalized,
or replaced completely with girl bosses. Yeah.
Or in most cases, I believe, is the athletes and the hero athletes themselves have taken themselves out of the picture.
Yeah.
They're idiots.
Well, I mean, so this was kind of some people thought this was kind of funny when I was talking about this whole mythology around superheroes and how that was going to affect very deeply our culture. And I think this is part of that. I think it's the beginning of that. Because when you start taking away a young man's heroes and replacing him with women who are way more powerful than him by fiat, you begin to take away everything that built who he was. And so then when he has nothing left, they go searching. And there's nothing for young men on the left. There's just nothing there. Unless you want to be particularly white males. If you're a white male, there is absolutely nothing positive for you on the liberal left. There's just not.
Anathema.
No, unless you crave being a oppressor, and you desire being put down because of who you are, so that you can elevate someone else, then that's where you want to be at. But that's not where most normal humans want to be. And so, this whole kind of culture that's been developed over the past 3 years, ever since COVID, really, this whole culture is just abandoning a whole generation of young boys. And we're going to pay the price for that. Our country is going to pay the price for that.
Big time.
It's going to be bad. When we're not having families and people aren't getting married and we're not having kids and we have a population collapse, we can't support our industries. Yeah, we're going to be ripe for domination. And there's plenty of countries in the world that would love to dominate the United States.
I read this morning that Russia and China were doing naval maneuvers off the Aleutian Islands. 12 or 13 ships. And it was like second page news type stuff. It'll
be second page news until they've sunk one of our destroyers.
Yeah. Well, we sent 3 destroyers to keep an eye on them. And they were in international waters, so it's like, okay. But it was just, it was just like just a tidbit of information from this one organization, and how much of that's going on elsewhere.
Well, and the sad thing is that all of our allies are so used to depending on the U.S. for all of their needs that they have no way of supporting us if we did get attacked. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to send their massive, naval fleets over to help us out. Where are they coming from?
Yep.
Because there's no other countries in the world that can match Russia and China except for ours.
Yeah, that was interesting in this article. It said that we sent these 3 destroyers to protect Canada and America. I'm thinking to myself, why are we protecting Canada?
Yeah. Why are we protecting Canada?
They don't care about us.
I mean, I love Canada. Canada's a great place, but, you're a nation. Support yourself.
Yeah, politically speaking, are they a nation?
Well, that's debatable.
Another podcast.
That's debatable. Air quotes.
There it is. Hey, how'd you get that in there so quick?
Oh, well, Yeah. So anyway, are there 2 surveys here?
Yeah, there's 2 surveys, and what's the third piece is the Daily Wire article, and then the 4th piece is Politico.
So you have the CatholicVote.org. You have the Michigan Survey Research Center.
Well, I found the original idea and everything was this article on CatholicVote.org.
Right.
And they kind of highlighted these four pieces of data, and then I kind of drilled into each one of those to see what they were about and who was doing them and what they were talking about. And so I kind of unpacked it a little bit. So the first one was a data set by this Monitoring the Future project, which is run by the University of Michigan Survey Research Center.
And this was what was highlighted in the Catholic Vote article, right?
Yeah, this one and the next one are basically saying the same things from 2 different organizations and 2 different sets of data.
Okay, so just for clarity, CatholicVote.org didn't run the poll. They're accumulating the data from the University of Michigan and from, what was it? The
other one is the Gallup polls.
The Gallup polls. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so they published the data set, and then this graph that I put on here, which just kind of visualizes it for you, is a visualization of that data. They didn't actually graph it, and so you have to take the data and graph it yourself. But they've been doing these surveys since 1975, so it's been almost 50 years. And here you see they started out back in 75, fairly broadly divided between high school boys and girls, being conservative or liberal, and actually they were then the opposite of what they are now. And so boys were typically more liberal than girls, and then they crossed in there around the 80s. And
so
then they
right around the Reagan era.
Yep. And so, that stands to reason. Reagan was a very powerful male political hero.
I guess that would have been the end of Carter, the beginning of Reagan, right?
Mm-hmm. And then I think it was Carter, that era right around 2000. Who was in power in 2000? They were basically identical at that time. And then after that, they diverged again a bit. And then these radical swings that you see are, our current several presidents, including Trump, which some of these air quotes experts are speculating has kind of fueled the hyper-masculinity among young boys and driven them farther in the conservative direction, and vice versa has repelled so many young women that they're swinging way hard left into the liberal direction.
And then, of course, you got liberal female leaders who are really pushing third-wave feminism and lesbianism, which is also pushing more girls to be alienated from their peers of the opposite sex.
Yeah. And intolerance for conservative virtues and values.
Your colors have me confused.
Why? Because you can't. Boys can't have red. I think that's more indicative of their political leanings, Greg.
I know, pink and blue, and I'm like, wait a minute, I just read, and now this is so. Yeah, the girls are blue, the guys are red.
So you can't see this. So on this graph,
it's very difficult.
On this graph,
this colorblind guy,
the guys are graphed out in a red line, and the girls are graphed out in a blue line. And this is confusing for Greg because that doesn't make any sense to him.
Right. I'm old, and girls are pink, and guys are blue.
Well,
just saying. Just saying.
So some of the key takeaways.
Well, here's the first thing I think that the audience needs to know. This is 12th grade boys.
12th grade boys.
This is being taken from. So it's really a small slice of what potentially could be out there.
Yeah, that's
an interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely
slice.
The first graph lays out 12th grade boys, and it shows that 12th grade boys are nearly twice as likely to identify as conservatives versus liberals. Roughly 1/4 of high school seniors self-identified as conservative or very conservative.
That's a little interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You think on a nationwide basis, nearly 1/4. What that tells me is that the heartland of America and blue-collar America is still alive. They're quiet, but they're still there.
Well, and isn't Michigan kind of a breeding ground for Islam? Sharia law, don't they have a couple cities in Michigan that are Sharia law? And it seems interesting to me that would be
maybe.
Of course, it's not just Michigan, but it's the University of Michigan that did the study.
Was this poll conducted only in Michigan schools? Do we know?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, that would be a weird way to sample a poll.
It would be a worthless way to sample a poll.
Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to find that out.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting to know. I doubt it.
Yeah, I do too.
But
it would almost be, like I said, not worth taking the poll if that's where your or your data is coming.
I think the silent majority is a real thing. I think that Bud Light, Disney, a lot of these companies are proving that the silent majority is an actual thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's been quiet. It's been quietly kind of been in the background, kind of hanging out. But I think there comes a point where you just can't take it anymore. You're just done. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the mentality that a lot of America has. I would be willing to say that a good swath of America has more conservative-leaning values than liberal-leaning values. And this attempt by Hollywood and by corporate America to force deeper liberal agendas on conservative values is not having the effect that I think that they thought it would have. Mm-hmm. I think they thought it was going to create a new generation of more freer, liberal thinking people, and actually, it's having the opposite effect.
At least in that area, in those industries, in the entertainment industry, trying to just be in our face and shut us up is not working.
Yeah,
like Sound of Freedom, at the box office is whipping the rest of Hollywood.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What struck me was the divide. The divide is greater now than it has been in any decade previous to it, even when they first started tracking it. When they first started tracking it, was pretty vast, between boys and girls in the opposite direction. But now that divide is even greater still than it was before.
Yeah, in the beginning there was about an 8-point divide, and now it's probably nearly 12 or 10.
Yeah, it's 12 or 10 at the least. And then what's interesting is from like what is that, like 1980 to roughly I would say 2014, 2015, I mean, it was kind of bouncing around kind of in very similar numbers and within 3 or 4 points of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, right after 2020, it just went completely separate directions.
COVID and Trump.
Yep. And so that's an interesting thing to think about because, people often complain about Trump being polarizing. I mean, he was. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the data shows that out very clearly, that he was definitely a deciding factor in the polarization of America. Now, whether that was a bad thing or not, I guess could be debated, but it's no doubt that it's there, and he was part of it. And it could be that part of what he did incited the left a little bit to be a little bit more extreme. And then with the coming on of Kamala Harris, she is deeply polarizing. Nobody talks about this, but Kamala Harris is a deeply polarizing woman. She despises everything that there is about conservatism, and she is on board with just trying to push as many liberal agendas as she possibly can. And I say Kamala Harris because, honestly, I don't even think Joe Biden is aware that he's president anymore. I'm convinced that he is completely out of his element at this point.
He's in Biden land.
Yeah, they're just using him as a figurehead now, and there's a lot of them in office right now that are like that. What's the Mitch McConnell?
Yeah.
Did you see that thing with Mitch McConnell?
Yeah, where he lost it right in the middle of a speech. Yeah, that was sad.
It's
He's in his 80s.
Yeah, somebody needs to step in and help those people out because that's just sad.
Well, they are. They're puppeting. The puppeteers.
It's just sad what's going on with those folks.
Yeah, who was it? Somebody, I saw a proposal to limit the age of presidential candidates. It used to be the younger you were, the less likely you were, and so they put in the 35-year. You had to be 35 years old to run for president. And I think it was back in the Kennedy era that came about. And now they're talking about putting a cap on it. Like once you turn 75 or 80, that's it.
Well, I mean,
you're no longer.
At the very least, you should be analyzing someone's mental capacities, to some degree.
The left analyzes the right analyzes the left. We wouldn't have any candidates.
Let his appointees do it, or whatever. But you could have an age limit on it. That would make sense to me as well. I mean, if you have a age limit on how old you have to be, and then it makes sense to have an age limit on how old you can be.
The previous speaker, what was her name again?
Nancy Pelosi.
See, I'm getting old too. I shouldn't be running for president.
No,
I'm going to take my name off the list.
Okay.
She seems to have all her capacities, but she's not all there.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of younger people in Congress too that don't really have their act together either. So I guess that's kind of a tough argument to make.
You're 35 and you're senile. What's going on here?
Yeah, some of those people are just bonkers. Let's see. Back in the Carter era, both boys and girls leaned liberal, which is interesting. Is that a testament to his leadership, you think?
I don't think it's so much his leadership. Maybe he was he was the kinder, gentler president before Bush made it popular. Carter was very unassuming, very non-threatening, very easy to tolerate by everybody, I think.
Well, what was going on during the Carter era that defined who he was?
Other
than the Iran hostage thing, which he bungled. But that was at the end of his administration. In fact, it was Reagan that came in and got the hostages out, right? If I remember that correctly.
I think so.
So, I'm not really sure what he did. We had a really deep recession during Carter.
The economy was...
Yeah, there was that one point in Carter's administration where people were lined up to get gasoline.
He made Billy Bear real popular.
I mean, did he actually do anything? Is there? I mean, maybe that's what's required for
his best to push it away.
Maybe that's what's required for people to start getting along. It's just our leaders to do nothing.
Yeah,
forgettable presidents.
Wait a minute. We have something here. Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen.
If the president gets into office and does nothing, people become more unified.
Yes. Yeah, that is a scary, true statement.
It could be. It really could be. Although that doesn't really play out because during the Bush era and even the Clinton era, we didn't have the polarization that we have today. And Clinton and Bush and Barack Obama, for that matter, were all very active in policymaking, and a lot of things happened in their administrations.
Mm-hmm. But they weren't non-issue presidents, though.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so we're asking for presidents that are wishy-washy and kind of like the pirates that don't do anything.
Yeah, maybe.
Presidents that don't do anything.
Maybe.
There's a song there.
Let's see. The share of 12th grade girls who identified as liberal rose from 19% in 2012 to 30% in 2022. Only 12% of girls identify as conservative in last year's survey. That's terrifying.
Yeah. What's that going to mean for a decade, 2 decades from now? These are the women, the mothers.
It means you're going to have a bunch of lesbian feminists walking around without husbands.
Yeah.
You know,
you look at this and you got to think the marriage rate's going to tank.
Marriage rate's going to tank. The
childbearing's
we're already way behind on making children. And so, you know, if you begin to take all the women and make them into men and make all the men into women and make everything androgynous, and all the women start leaning over to the left, then, you know, you're going to have a population collapse. It's inevitable. You know, I mean, because you have to have 2 different body parts to make children. So, you know.
No, you don't.
I don't know.
They have test tubes.
I don't know where the LGBTQ community thinks that it's going to get its children from to adopt.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the big argument you don't hear very often. Is it's just not sustainable on a very basic biological level.
No, our society will not survive it. It's not possible.
I mean, you know, all the futuristic movies that we see have everybody's grown in a test tube.
Baby farms?
Well,
baby farms, yeah.
That may be that may be true, but we're not even close to that yet.
We're closer than we think, I think.
Yeah, I don't think so. We can't even comprehend consciousness at this point.
AI was not even a thing. I mean, it was a thing for the last 20 years. They've been working it, but now it's part of our society.
Well, it's part of our vocabulary.
Boom. Yeah, boom.
Yeah.
It's quick. And it's permeating everything.
I mean, I would argue that that's not quick, but I mean, I think that there's a big difference between those two things too.
One generation.
Yeah. I mean, creating a machine that simulates intelligence is one thing. Creating consciousness is a completely other thing. That's a completely separate issue. We can't even create machines yet that have the capacity to simulate consciousness. I mean, that's not even a thing.
You don't think AI's on the cusp of that? Or
no, not even close.
So what are you calling consciousness? Being able to...
Sentience,
okay.
Self-awareness.
Yeah. You don't think that's there?
Life?
With AI?
No, you have to input stuff. AI is not going to... It can't sit there and self-generate thought.
Yet.
It's not God yet.
Yet. We're all using that word. Colossus, the movie. They're remaking that movie. We talked about that a little bit.
I don't know that that's even possible.
I didn't think AI was possible. What we have today.
I always thought that AI was possible. I mean, you get a machine. I mean, that's been science fiction for decades.
So, yeah, let's look at science fiction. C-3PO and R2-D2. Do you think they portrayed them as having a conscience?
Yeah, because it's a movie.
Yeah.
And robots are uninteresting if they don't have personality.
Yes. And so
that doesn't mean by extension that your laptop is going to have personality.
But here's the question. Do those people that are promoting AI, are they looking to do that? Do they want AI to have that conscience?
I think that science is always pushing the borderline between things, but let's not forget that man is not God, and for us to assume that we can put some cells into a petri dish and then grow that into a person that is then going to have the sentience and consciousness that God gives to people in the womb,
soul,
and that's we're so far away from that, we may not ever achieve that.
I hope not.
I mean,
I just don't think we're that far away.
And then on the other side of that, if that's the case and we can do that, then that tells us some things about the direction that God is having it go anyways, because that means that God is inserting souls into that person. So, or creating souls for that person.
Say if we did create a human in a petri dish without a God-breathed spirit in it, wouldn't that just be a pure evil person?
Ooh,
it would have only the base human instinct of sin and evil.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, if it could even be self-aware.
Yeah.
But I think the closest that we have right now is, fertilized eggs and surrogacy. Because you can fertilize an egg in a test tube, and then plant it inside of a person, and then that egg begin to develop inside of that person. But then does that person take on the characteristics of the person that they're growing into?
And that's been the big question with cloning.
But see, that's the kind of the thing, right? We have zero idea of how consciousness works. We just know nothing about it. We can't. I mean, we could grow a child in a petri dish or whatever, so that all of our future lesbian wives can have children. But we have no idea how that's going to turn out. It's kind of like the way that the vaccines went. Now, it's not to say that we won't do it. Because look what happened with the vaccines. 0 clinical trials. Don't worry, it's safe. Here it is. Put it in your body.
Trust us.
Don't worry about the long-term effects. We have no idea what that's going to look like in 20 years. We just don't know. So,
that's what I was saying earlier. We don't know. One generation, can change so dramatically.
But I think to say that those entities are going to have sentience or consciousness is a stretch, because we have no way of knowing whether or not that's even a possibility or not.
But a likeness of that consciousness, I believe
they
that
could
they're trying to
program it with
build
a
that
personality.
Yeah,
they could create a data model that gives this entity, to borrow the Mission Impossible term, with certain characteristics, gentle, kind, mean, smart,
motherly,
intelligent, sarcastic,
fatherly,
humorous, whatever.
Yeah.
And they could give it a personality, just like they do the AIs that you see in the online that, men are choosing over real women now.
But the very fact that you can program it is evidence that it's not consciousness.
True. That's my point.
Yeah.
You have to have input to have output.
Yeah.
You can't create anything from nothing. You haven't gotten there yet.
You guys, I've told you about Colossus, but the one interesting thing was there was 2 of them. There were 2 computers that hooked up together, and they started talking to each other. And they, at some point, went so far beyond what the creators had done and created their own language. And that's basically, spoiler alert for those of you that want to go back to 1970, that's how they took over the world.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist for the most part, but I look at that and I go, 30 years ago, I was like, that was a good movie, but, actually 50 years ago, but ain't going to happen. And now I look at our world and I go, it's happening.
Well, what I was saying was, and that you could be right, it could be that, but what I was saying is that we're not close enough now that that's going to be a viable option for these girls that are marrying each other and hoping to adopt children. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen. We will suffer a severe population collapse before that ever becomes an option.
Similar to what's going on in China.
Yep.
With what's the ratio now? 3 to 1, 3 guys to 1.
Yeah, it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there's much hope for that, unless you can get some of those people to start transitioning back to the idea of, family's not such a bad thing, and desiring of that again.
And we have to keep in mind that Satan is attacking.
And yeah,
our battle is not against flesh and blood.
That's for sure. But I think that boys are picking up on that. They are, because they have some guys out there that are kind of supporting these kind of positive masculine ideas. There's some of them out there that are promoting some quasi air quotes positive kind of ideas, like what's the guy's name? I just had it and now I lost it. The guy who just got accused of some. He's a big time YouTuber. He just was on Candace Owen. Gosh, I can't remember his name now. Big deal right now. But anyways, he's a podcaster, and he's been doing those kind of conversations where he's talking about manhood and
not Jordan Peterson.
No. The ridiculousness of the feminine ideology now, and gender roles, and a lot of these different things. He's done some interviews with some of these Instagram models where he talks to them about how they're kind of destroying the world with their wholesale sale of their body, but still want to talk about we want everything the way that men have it. We want to be treated like men. We want to be treated with respect, but yet we want everything that is offered to women as well. We want to be treated like women, and we want to be treated like men, and we want men to treat us like women, but we also want men to treat us like men as well. So we want all of the things.
Is it one of these guys? Andrew Tate?
Andrew Tate. That's him. Yep. He's a dirtbag, womanizer. But
could you be honest with us, Chris?
But he has a message that is appealing to young men right now, because they see it. I talk to my boys all the time, and my boys are very hesitant to get involved with any girls because they're just
exploitative.
I don't know, exploitative. Yeah, they're exploitative. They are narcissistic.
We're talking about the general population, right? We still have a group
we have
of young Christian women that are.
Well, we're talking about this group of people who are pushing really far left, is what we're talking about. And it's all about self-service, self-awareness, self-love. You've seen that a lot on TV. So it's an unsustainable culture. And I don't know that anybody has thought that far ahead on their side. They want what's good for them right now.
Yeah.
They're not even considering what that's going to look like
Mm-hmm.
2 decades down the road.
No, absolutely not. It's the me generation. It's been the me generation for a generation now.
Yeah.
And we're starting to reap the rewards of that.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Women ages 18 to 29 are more likely to identify as liberal now than at any time in the past 2 decades. Generation Z favors liberalism over conservatism by a margin of 48 to 33, according to the NBC News polling from 2022. I think that's a artifact of our education system. Hands down, 100%. They go into public school, and by the way, if you're a believer here today and your child is in public school, you need to be having nightly conversations with them about how the things that they are learning
Amen.
as an ideology are wrong, because they're getting flooded with secular humanism, postmodernism, and moral relativism
And if I might
on a
add,
daily basis.
eat dinner together and turn your phone off and turn the TV off. Really spend some quality time with your kids.
Yeah.
Instead of, what the family is doing today is everybody grabs their plate, sits on the couch, and gets on their phones or watches TV. We don't have that interaction.
Well, that started last generation.
Yeah.
That's what my family did. I can remember them coming home from work, and Mom would fix dinner, and then we would sit down at TV trays in front of the TV and eat dinner and watch whatever was on the TV.
Yeah. That started in the 50s.
Yeah.
With TV.
Yeah. So, we're reaping the benefits of poor decisions over the last, 5 generations for sure.
Yeah.
And technology has just made that easier. We're just not very good at managing it.
Right.
We're not very good at managing ourselves.
And, talk radio, you hear a lot of that. Screen time is what they're calling it now.
Yeah.
And, it's over the top. I'm guilty.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Also, kind of going back to like the school system, I think people need to start thinking about something, right? If we're talking about AI and all that other stuff, with the rise of AI, there's going to be a depletion of white-collar jobs. You're not going to need logistics managers. You're not going to need policy writers. You're not going to need, a lot of these white-collar jobs, administrative jobs where people are making marginal decisions and just kind of pushing paperwork. Within the next decade, those things are going to be a thing of the past. AI is going to be doing all of that.
Good point.
Much cheaper.
Anything that has a guided conversation with a real person can be automated.
Yeah, pretty much. And so there's going to be a serious depletion of white-collar jobs. I mean, think about even like computer coders. I mean, why hire a person computer coder to sit at a desk for 8 hours to write a portion of code when you can just tell an AI, this is what I want it to do, and it can write that code in 5 minutes.
Now you're scaring me.
Well, that's what I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? You're not going to have an AI that's going to come frame up your building or install your electrical outlets
yet,
or snake out your toilet
Or milk cows.
or clean the street, or put up a power line. Blue collar jobs are going to exist because we're a century away from making AI plus robots capable of doing those jobs.
And we become the worker bees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and when you throw that out there onto the table, college will almost become obsolete.
I think college is already obsolete.
Wasn't gonna say that.
I think except for like professional positions, like, if you're going to be a physician, you're going to be a surgeon, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be an engineer. You unless you need higher education to accomplish the task that you're doing, it's absolutely pointless to go to college.
You will need higher education to run the machines that will be doing the jobs. Somebody the other day, I can't remember who it was, they were going in for back surgery, and there was no human hand was going to touch them. It was all going to be automated.
Yeah.
And that just kind of blew me away. I knew it was there, but
Yeah.
this person's going to do it. And they're a little antsy about it, on one hand, but on the other hand, it's like, okay, is that going to be more accurate?
Most surgeries now are done endoscopically with robots.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're all guided by people, but that's not going to change. I foresee that being the future of medicine.
Yes.
But still, there will always be a human element involved in that, because nobody within the next century is going to just go to the doctor's office, lay down on a table, and let a robot scan them and then start putting probes in their body.
Don't say nobody.
Are you satisfied with your care?
That's not going to happen. Nor should it.
Yeah.
And I think that people have enough common sense, at least now, to realize that that's a bad idea. But back to college.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to do something professionally, you do need that degree.
Sure. But
there's no reason for the average person to go to college to do the job they want to do.
Yeah.
There's no reason for a person to go to college to be a business person.
Mm-mm. And a lot. I don't think Elon Musk went to college.
Most really wealthy business people didn't go to college.
Yeah, because they have the savvy. They have the.
It's
built into them that.
They have a drive to do it. They want to do it. Yeah. That's kind of the trick, right?
Yeah.
It's like you go to college, you're forced to pick a major that you think that you're interested in. You spend 6 years in this major getting this degree, and then you get out and you realize, I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what this statistic is, but most people are not in the field that they've had their degree in.
I would imagine that's true.
But Jim Dobson, Dr. Dobson, 50 years ago, said not everybody should go to college, he says, because we will always need ditch diggers. And he didn't mean that in a negative way. What he was saying was
completely noble.
We need those blue-collar jobs.
Yeah.
We need people that, how to pound a nail, how to
that's an absolutely noble pursuit.
Yes.
There's nothing demeaning about pounding a nail or having the expertise to frame up a wall or having the expertise to put on a roof. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with these things.
Here's the problem with that. I've met a lot of people, my generation too, that said, I'm not going to college because I'm going to be a carpenter. And then you get into the carpentry and you realize, there's math here, there's geometry here, there's things that maybe I should have paid attention to.
Yeah,
flunking out of high school was not the right thing.
You know how easy it is to learn math right now? You can go on YouTube and you can watch a YouTube math course for 3 months, learn any kind of math that you want to learn.
That is the one good thing about YouTube.
Yep.
There
is no excuse for ignorance in today's society.
Yes. I mean, we all have our second brains right here in our hands.
And that's exactly what Elon Musk said. He said with YouTube and with social media, there is no point in college anymore. Mm-hmm. You can learn everything that you can learn in college. You can learn it right in your home, right off of YouTube for free.
Yep. Unless you don't have any common sense, which seems to be a trait today. You can't discern what you're looking at on YouTube.
And if that's the case, there's jobs out there for you as well. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a place in society. It's just we have a elitist organization of people that have told us that it has to be a certain way. Mm-hmm. And they push you from the beginning of middle school into high school to go into higher education. That's the mill. There's a documentary that was put out. It's called Finding Superman. Amazing documentary on the way that the public school system is set up to put people into categories and then mill them in such a way that they go into college, or they go into a trade, or they go into some type of a white collar job out of college, out of school. And it's terrifying, but it's true. It's true. That's the design of the public school system, and it's abysmal. It really is, and it's failing. By the way,
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we talk about whether or not we should or shouldn't support public school systems. You know, I mean, Idaho has a responsibility to fund public schools according to our Constitution, but it seems like there needs to be a revamp of that entire system. And I'm not sure that, you know, the whole, you know, money following the child is the solution. Obviously, you're going to have people that are going to abuse that too. People that shouldn't be homeschool parents are going to try to be homeschool parents, or people that aren't going to even invest in their kids' future are going to take that money and use it to buy TVs, you know, or whatever. So, you know, I mean, I'm not sure that that's the answer, but there again, you know, it's like, how do you begin
It's
to approach
better
that
than what
issue?
we have now.
It could be. It's a possibility. We don't know that.
Yeah,
We don't know that, but I mean, there's a possibility. It could be
Seemingly,
better.
on paper.
On paper, it seems like it's a good idea.
You
But
know, oftentimes when we're podcasting and just, you know, conversations around the table or at the bar, the movie Galaxy Quest, and when Captain Taggart tells the captain of the other ship who was being tortured that, you know, everything you've seen is a fake. And I don't know why, but this always comes up, and he's laying on the bed, totally distressed, and he says, "But why? But why?" And I think of that moment just about every time I read the news today.
yeah,
You know, that's the question. But why?
but why?
Why is the left doing what they're doing?
Well, you know, I mean, to be fair, you could ask that question all the
Why
way
is
across the
right
board.
doing
I
what
mean,
they're doing?
there are a lot of things going on both extremes, and I know that Heather Scott would tell you that you shouldn't be putting people into categories like that, but I don't know how you have a conversation about politics without putting people into categories. I just don't know how that's possible, but you know, you do have select groups of people on the far right that are pushing for theocracy, you know, and pushing just really generally bad ideas. And, you know, just as much as you have people on the left that are just raging with really bad ideas. And so, you know, yeah. So it might be that
Heavy sigh.
it might be that there could be a new party emerging out of all of this. You know, these non-identified, you know, guys, which you were pointing to, is the largest group of senior boys. More than 2/5 claim no politics at all.
Yeah.
Yep.
You might be seeing the rise of another party that is more than just like a movement. You know, it'll be like these people who are just, you know, I don't like this or I don't like that. They're too extreme. I want what's in the middle.
Yeah.
And
Which is what that is indicative of in this this survey.
I think that's what it shows. I think that a lot of people are just, they don't want to answer the question of whether I'm liberal or conservative. They want to say, you know, I'm none of the above. I'm whatever seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, that's
about
what
1/3.
Trump started with is let's just drain the swamp, start over.
Yeah.
I think that's what people really want, and it
Mm-hmm.
hasn't happened yet.
No, the swamp keepers are still
Nor-
in charge.
Nor could it. You know, that's an interesting. You remember a couple of weeks ago I did a sermon on taking oaths and you know, keeping oaths, and you remember when Trump, you know, made those promises to drain the swamp and you know all that kind of stuff, and these are obviously promises that he was unable to keep. Probably was never going to be able to keep. And so that's a great example of the danger of putting too much faith in oaths and and
Yeah.
And the
vows.
power of rhetoric.
Yeah, the power of
Mhm.
rhetoric is powerful. So
I know after every election, somebody puts together the video of the promises at the beginning and the results at the end, and it never changes.
Yeah.
Lies.
But we fall for it every time.
Every single time we get on the bandwagon. Yeah, let's go get them.
So this second graph that came from the Gallup poll, what is that showing us? It says percentage of men and women between the ages of 18 and 29. So this is college kids, right? So
Yeah,
college
so
age
this is
kids.
basically the next group up.
So what it's showing is that this is people who identify as liberal. And for women, it's up from 28-ish, 29-ish% to just under 40%. So marked increase in women identifying as liberal. And for men,
I think it's over.
It's down from where it was in 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just been kind of bouncing back and forth within about 5 points. The women have nearly doubled, 50% at least, within that same time period.
Yeah, I mean, in men's defense, we've stayed pretty stable.
Yeah,
in that regard.
That's kind of.
I mean, we've
hope-giving,
hovered between 30 and 24.
Like Ken said, that's indicative
decades.
of the other graph that shows
kind of showing the same thing,
the same
a little
type
bit
of
of
thing.
variation.
Yeah.
Well, I think, but the thing about the younger generation is that the gap is so much larger.
Mhm.
It's just it's massive, and it's only been since 2020. So basically, COVID. There was some marginalization that was happening as far as identifying liberal, even starting back as far as 2015, looks like. You think that's an artifact of the push of third wave feminism, maybe?
For sure.
I mean, it's interesting. I wonder how this correlates with the number of men versus women who are going to college. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, the numbers are heavily in favor of more girls go to college than boys.
Yeah, if you look at the third paragraph down from that graph, the article added support to the Gallup surveys with this statement. In the 2018-19 academic year, just 74 men received a bachelor's degree for every 100 women who completed their program. As of 23, 64% of women at public universities were graduating compared to 58% of men. In overall enrollment, women are outnumbering men by almost 60 to 40%, according to the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center.
Yep.
So women are going to college, getting indoctrinated, getting into the workforce, getting into the voting booths, and getting into power.
Yep. And the men are getting left behind.
Well, we're certainly being outrun, for sure.
Yeah.
And so
I wonder if
that's going to have implications.
I wonder if there's a psychological component to that. I wonder if there's something that makes men naturally less amiable to political ideology than women. And I'm not meaning that as a slam against women. I just think that women perhaps are more easily influenced politically than men are.
I think emotions definitely play into it.
I think the emotion.
I mean, if you look at
that,
the biggest problem among men in terms of, in my experience, in my opinion, in expressing political ideas and preferences and things, is they just don't care.
Yeah, that's fair.
But women are much more passionate and feeling about these issues than men are.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in terms of power, they're going to have more of a vote. So, guys, you need to get involved.
Yeah.
And it's going to be like this author made this statement regarding the last graph. She's an author and professor of psychology at San Diego State University, presenting the data in her book called, quote unquote, air quotes, Generations, states,
air quotes,
Among liberals, the future is female, and among conservatives, the future is male. That's kind of telling.
That sums this up.
That's not good.
No.
It's not good.
It's not good for families, church, society to be a unified culture, a unified society. It's polarizing.
It's
dividing.
not good for marriages for sure. I think that churches will probably just sustain as they are because, they're teaching traditional values and roles. And so, I think the church is going to be fine, as long as we are telling people to be fruitful and multiply, but as far as society in general is concerned,
there's a growing number of liberal churches.
Yeah, that's true.
And
That's true.
new churches that have no conservative religious roots. Yeah, they're built on other things.
Well, they're built on liberal ideology.
Church of AI, it's coming if it's not already here. Dare I say, Eve ate the apple first.
Wow, that is true.
I mean, think about it.
Yeah, that is true.
It was kind of tongue in cheek on one
No,
hand, but on the other hand, it's like the women are.
I think a good majority of
being
Christian
prominent.
women would agree with that, and I think that we view the world a lot differently than the world does, obviously, and so when we see that, we see tragedy approaching, but when the world sees that, they see, oh man, look at this victory. But then again, also, there's another component to that as they're eating their own. So all of this stuff with females becoming more liberal, they're actually in their liberalism losing all of their rights to transgenderism. And they don't, I'm good. They don't even see that.
Yeah.
They don't have a place for their sports anymore.
Well, if you erase the distinctions, then everything that was based on those distinctions is going to dissolve with it. And there's not going to be anything unique about being a woman or a man.
Well, that's what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think men will push back against that, though, because they're obviously leaning more conservative. And I think that's one of the things that they're fed up with in particular is the idea of transgenderism. I mean, that's fine if you want to pretend that you're a girl and you're a dude, whatever. But don't berate me for not wanting to date you. This is one of the things that guys are dealing with right now, and they're not on board with this idea. Whereas girls, they're like, well, whatever, the liberal girls for sure are just like, whatever, I mean, I think it's a great thing that they're finally getting their voice and, all that. But I think that you're going to see a turnaround in that. And I think that this graph is going to actually start straightening out, because I think that transgenderism, if it has done one thing, is it is giving people something to unite behind, and not in the way that they thought. Because girls who may have come out of college more liberal are now going, wait a minute, my whole life is meaningless now because I have to make way for this person who only thinks that they are a girl. And you notice that it's interesting because in that discussion about transgenderism, you don't ever hear anything about the girls who want to be guys. You never hear about that. That's not even, I mean, that happens, I'm sure.
In the world,
that happens for sure.
Some of that.
I'm positive that happens. You see that some in, like, some of the movie stars that you see. There's one who, I forget her name, but she transitioned from a girl to a guy. I don't know if she did the actual reassignment, but she is trans in the other direction. But that's not what you hear about oftentimes. And the simple fact of the matter is that if you had a trans girl who wanted to be a guy, and she wanted to be just like the guys and compete in the male sports and compete in all the, and do all the things that the guys do, she would find herself very quickly outpaced in those areas. And that's why you don't hear about that. You don't ever hear about a trans girl going into, I don't know if you would refer to her as trans girl or a trans man. I think it's probably a trans man, I guess. But you never hear about them going in and dominating a sport. That you don't hear about that because it doesn't happen. That's not possible.
Not even in badminton.
No. And so, but the other side of that, when you have a trans woman that gets involved in women's sports, she suddenly dominates all the sports. Mm-hmm. And the girls are starting to look at that, I think. Real girls, real women with real desires for equality, real equality, are looking at that and going, wait a minute. All of this that we fought for all these years is now being stripped away from us in the name of transgenderism.
And seemingly the women's movement is embracing this.
Yeah.
They're saying, no, this is okay. We've finally made it. We're there. We're equal.
Well,
we're not equal.
You hear these arguments about, it's like, well, they should be able to use the women's bathroom, and you should be putting, tampons in the men's bathroom for guys who think that who are trans women, and then this makes big news, right? But you have two girls in Coeur d'Alene that feel threatened because some guy is coming in using the female's bathroom. No women from feminism or no trans women or no lesbian women came to their defense. It's just like, you're part of the problem.
Yeah, you're backward.
You're part of the problem. You're ignorant. It's like, okay, well, fair enough, for you to think that. If that's the way that you want to perceive the world, you shouldn't be surprised when people think that way about you. You reap what you sow. Let's get back to that, can we? Yeah. You reap what you sow. You don't get to have your cake and eat it too. That's not the way that it works. So, I think that, in my own personal opinion, I think that, as we're kind of coming close to time here, I think that there's going to be an equalization there to a degree in this area, because especially those women who are feminist before they are LGBTQ supporting are going to start seeing that, wait a minute, they're taking away the rights that I fought for. Women fought for a long time to have their own place in sports. Mm-hmm. They really did. Mm-hmm. They fought hard to have their own place in sports. And now these girls that spend their entire lives becoming the best that they possibly can in a given sport get kicked out of their sport by a guy who was 400th ranked in college in men's. Yep. It's appalling. But, this is kind of the way that whole mill is telling people to think. And I don't think you're going to be able to I don't think that girls are going to come out of that until they're in their 30s. I think that once they get out of college, they get into the workforce, they start watching the news with a eye that is not being indoctrinated by their professors.
Reality sets in.
They'll start moving more conservative. That naturally happens anyways. But just wait until the first day that they have to write a check to the IRS. They'll be instantly conservative. It's true. It's all fun and games when you have the free ride. And then all of a sudden, when you start having to pay your fair share, air quotes, then you start changing your tune a little bit. And guys have a little bit more of a stake in being conservative early now, simply because liberalism has nothing to offer them. But girls who are not transgender or LGBTQ will begin to be more conservative because, as a general rule, because they will also begin to understand that liberalism has nothing to offer them. And people who are classically liberal will also become more conservative because they're already learning that the liberalism of today has nothing to offer them except for shackles and removal of freedoms. And a classical liberal is not going to support that. Bill Maher is a perfect example of that. He's really far leftist, but he's a classical liberal, which means that he opposes all of this kind of LGBTQ, forced pronoun, forced language, all of this stuff that limits his free speech. He's like, nope, because he's classically liberal, and they'll be more conservative. So I think if we have any kind of ace in the hole, it is the LGBTQ community. I think they are our biggest ally that we never had. It's gonna,
and we're starting to see that.
It's gonna alter the way that people think, not the way that they think it is. Mm-hmm. I truly believe that, because it's like you said, it's unsustainable, and normal people will know that. Mm-hmm. They'll know, it's like, we can't live like this. This is not possible. It's ridiculous. And so I think you're going to see these graphs decrease.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think you're actually going to see less people going to college too over the course of time as homeschooling becomes more prevalent, as this next generation of homeschoolers comes out. People who are not going into professional careers, they're not even considering college. It's not even on the radar.
Do you think that the left pushing for relief of college debt and sending people to college free of charge, that's obviously part of the agenda to get them into college so that they can be indoctrinated into this?
Yeah, that's all part of it.
Yeah.
And that might be a thing,
so,
right?
Our new campaign, don't go to college.
I hesitate to say that, but it is true. If you're not going into a professional career, take an apprenticeship somewhere or go get a job.
Yeah.
Go
to a trade school.
The first 5 jobs that I had in my life, I hated them. But I had to have a job. It wasn't until I was in my 30s that I actually got the job that I wanted. So, don't freak out about it. You don't have to have the job of your dreams coming right out of college or right out of high school. You don't even really need it. Just live your life. Find some people. Find a community. Find a husband. Find a wife. Think about having some kids. These are the things. My wife said it one time before. She said it best. She said, education's wasted on the young. It is. Young people probably should not go to college, even think about college until they're in their 30s.
They've lived a little bit of life.
Yeah, live a little bit of life. Go serve in a community somewhere. Go. Whatever happened to going to getting into the Peace Corps, or doing something outside of yourself, and serve your community a little bit. Whatever happened to that? Go to the mission field for a couple of years. Go visit Africa. Go visit Australia. Go backpack Europe.
Yeah.
Whatever. Live life. You're going to get more value out of the money that you spend backpacking across Europe than you will ever get out of college.
Truth. That sounds funny, but
it's true. You're going to learn more lessons along that trip than anything else. I wouldn't recommend doing it by yourself, but you're gonna learn a lot. So just live life. Learn how to live life. Good grief.
Yeah, it'll never be easier than when you're young.
Yeah. Yep.
That's for sure.
That's for sure. Yeah, because imagine Greg backpacking across Europe now.
Greg can barely get off the couch these days.
You're doing pretty good for your age.
Do you know where your backpack is?
He knows where his bag of discs are.
Yeah.
For disc golf.
I know where all those are.
Disc Golf Europe.
In fact,
you'd sign up for that.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. Start a whole generation.
That'd be cool.
Disc Golf Europe. Some of the biggest tournaments are in Europe.
Yeah.
Most lucrative.
So, the whole idea of the government paying off student debt. I mean, I'm torn about it. I think they probably owe it to those people that accumulated that debt to pay for it, because it was unfairly accumulated. And I'll tell you why. When the federal government decided that it would get involved in the payment process of public education and college education, that's when the costs skyrocketed.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can't afford to go to college unless you take out federal loans. That's the only way you can make it.
Mm-hmm.
Full time.
Yeah. There's a very, very small percentage that can pay for it.
You could go part-time with the grants that you could get for part-time, but that's not a lot.
Mm-mm.
And then work as well. You could do that, but it's going to take you 12 years.
Yep. Might as well raise a family
to get your master's. So, I almost feel like the federal government owes it to these people to say, okay, we're sorry. We should have never been involved with this.
Well, let's go
We're
back.
Just going to let you off the hook.
Let's go back a few generations from that and even say the federal government should have never been involved in education.
Oh, but hands down, 100%. Yeah, they should have never been involved. The local communities should have been the only people involved in their education process. It should have never left. At the very most, it should have never left the state.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way you have the ability to choose. It's like, well, my state's terrible in education. I'm going to move to Missouri where they have really great education. You have the ability to do that. Well, now you can't move anywhere without being involved in the same crap federal education system.
Mm-hmm.
So congratulations.
So they're doing their job.
Congratulations. We all have equal levels of garbage. That's kind of the way equality works, though. Socialism.
Equal levels of misery.
Yeah. That's the root of socialism. It's like we all have equal levels of poverty. Congratulations, guys. Except for the 5 guys in Washington who have all the money, like Klaus. Klaus, you will own nothing and you will like it.
Yeah, I read something about him this morning. I can't remember what it is. But to sit here and look at that man's picture, it gives me the willies.
Yeah, he looks like a turtle. He reminds me of a turtle.
He's got turtle lips. Yeah.
He's a turtley guy.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? Dana Carvey in that one where he's like the master of the skies and he goes to the turtle club and he's like, am I not turtly enough for the turtle club?
Yeah, we digress.
Anyways, so I think that you're going to see a marked change in conservative values over the next 5 years even.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a vacuum for male role models and heroes. If somebody steps into that, it could have a big impact.
Well, look at Sound of Freedom.
Yeah.
Sound of Freedom, indie film, had no backing, no advertisement from Hollywood, and is outperforming all of the major motion pictures that are out there right now.
I think Barbie,
save for like Barbie.
Oh my gosh, what's going on here?
If Indiana Jones didn't prove our point, I don't know what can show you.
Mm-hmm.
Here you have a guy who was a seminal male hero role model from even my youth.
Mm-hmm.
And you turn him into this crotchety old guy that can't get anything right to be replaced with a girl. Well, that's exactly what you're saying. You have no place here, men. This is our world now, and you're out. So they're doing the exact same thing that they fought against for so many years. They're doing the exact same thing, just in reverse. It's instead of the patriarchy, it's the matriarchy.
That's one of the weird things that the Barbie movie brought out is that, they kept saying things like, yeah, Ken didn't have his own car, Ken didn't have his own place, and I didn't even know about his friend, Kevin, I think his name was, or something like that.
Yeah, there's like not a lot of options when
who's
it comes
this
to guys.
Guy? And they made him out to be a non-issue.
Well, the men in Barbie world are non-issues.
Yeah.
It's not about Ken.
And then you've got The Sound of Freedom with Tim Ballard, a true hero.
Yeah.
a true hero.
Yeah. And
You know.
guys will latch onto him.
Oh, yes.
Yep. And they will respect him and honor him. And Jim Caviezel too.
Yeah.
Jim Caviezel
He's gonna stand
will
out.
become that person.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson
Mel
is
Gibson.
another one. Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson and Mark Wahlberg.
Right. Yeah, they're both standing up against Hollywood.
Both of them. They're going to become the heroes of the next generation of men coming up.
They're pretty good heroes. They've got their problems because they're human.
Well, yeah, they're secular people.
Yeah.
They're normal people.
But at least they're standing up for what is right and the freedoms that this country was founded on.
And they see the writing on the wall. Our current liberal state of society is just not sustainable. It's not sustainable at all in any way.
Yeah.
Just not going to happen. Well, Greg, do you have any final thoughts for us?
Yes. If you are a male and you are listening to this podcast and you're a dad, please embrace your son. Please bring him up as a man and help him to see what's going on in our society and stand against it. Stand firmly against it. And if you are a son listening to this, look to your dad as your role model. And if he's not the role model that we've talked about here today, make him that. You be the role model. Don't like saying that, but I think it's appropriate in our day and age. Young women, same thing. Look to your dad as the leader, as the provider, as the muscle, if you will, in your family. And mothers, you know your role. And it is not to be submissive to your husband to the point of abuse, but you're side by side with him raising these kids. And so do it in a Christ-like manner. Go to church, figure out what's going on in your life, and live it so that Christ can look down and go, well done.
Yeah. That's good. Ken?
Good. I know we probably don't have any or very many young men listeners to this podcast, but hopefully you older men and some older women will recommend this topic to the young men that you know in your lives. And that is to encourage them to be men, to embrace manhood, embrace masculinity, not with a hyper-masculine, macho, abusive kind of a approach, and not with a effeminate trying to blend into the liberal feminist ideology, but be a man of strength under control. You can be that, and this world needs you. We need strong men who know how to wield their power properly for the benefit and the blessing of others, not themselves, to be the servant leaders of this generation that's coming up, and to carry on the virtues and the values that made this country great and are the best of manhood.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. I think if I had something final to say, I would kind of echo those sentiments, but I'd also like to reach out to some of the dads that are out there, grandfathers, uncles, even moms. You know, if you have sons that are struggling in the world today because they feel like there's not a place for them, which is a fair way to think. I think one thing that we can do to help them is to make Jesus into a hero again. It's one thing that we have not done well is we have not lifted up Christ as the epitome of heroic virtue. And, you know, perhaps part of the problem with some of the liberal kind of church ideology is that they have feminized Christ. And he has feminine components for sure because he is God in the flesh, but ultimately he should be able to be the ideal archetype of a hero for all people. And I would say that, start letting your kids and your nieces and your nephews and your grandchildren, start instilling that in them, that Jesus was a hero. He is a hero, and he will be a hero again in our future.
Mm-hmm.
And he will be a hero for all of eternity. And there is no hero that man has ever made that can equal the heroic exploits of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
It just doesn't exist. And so I would say, if you're out there today and you're kind of wondering, what am I going to do with my kids and all that, I would say that's a good place to start. Make Jesus a hero again.
Yeah.
Well, that about does it for us today. As always, thank you for joining us. If you have a comment or question or an idea for an episode, send us an email at 3p@ethelbaptistchurch.org, and Ken will answer that.
His box is empty.
Because Greg and I will not. But yeah, Ken always checks those, so make sure you send us an email. And actually, just send us an email or send us a comment so that we know that you're listening, and just so we can thank you for listening. That'd be great. Yeah. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. That's really important. And thanks to Ethel Baptist Church's members for their generous support. And again, thank you for listening. And until next time, remember the Great Commission. Go into all the world, reach the lost with the gospel, and build disciples who can do the same. And with that, we are out.